All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is Wednesday, what, the first, second? Wednesday, the 11th, June 11th. Amazing. We'll say the first Wednesday in June, but it is the second. And I do sometimes, it seems like most Wednesdays or Thursdays, one or the other, start late. So 3 p.m. start time, not our usual noon. And that's because I was down on Capitol Hill with Code Pink. We were actually was trying to bird dog. That's when you confront a Congress member or a politician. You confront them and you ask them uncomfortable questions, and in public a lot of times at meetings and the like. And so I was hanging outside a conference room in one of the congressional office buildings. Which one was it? I can't even remember now. There's a bunch of them. There's they're named after the various well-known Congress members and such. So I was outside one of these meetings where they were meeting rooms where they were going to have a hearing on the rise of anti-Israeli extremism. Apparently, this is on the rise, and I was going to ask if any representative, because there was a bunch of Congress members who were going to be chairing this meeting. They had, I think, some rabbis and other luminaries in the Zionist, I won't say Jewish, but in the Zionist community, to talk about how terrifying it is that there are people who are actually angry at Israel because it's committing genocide. And that was going to be my question, if I was able to find any Congress members who were on their way to the hearing to say, hey, do you think the genocide that the entire world is watching on their computers might be fueling some of the anti-Israeli sentiment that we're seeing? That was going to be my question. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to ask anybody. They all went in through this secret, well, I don't know if it was a secret, but they have a private entry room for the conference room. And a lot of the rooms don't have that. You actually see, often you do see the representatives in the hallways. They really can't avoid the public as much as they would like. But in this case, they were able to, the Congress members. They knew we were there. They knew we were waiting for them, and they ducked through the internal hallways. I'm actually surprised that they can't avoid us all the time. You'd think that those office buildings would all be a warren of hallways and secret passageways. And there's a lot of them, it's true. But there are times when you can find these people, and they really can't hide. Today's program was kind of suggested to me, the theme, I guess I should say. By the way, call in anytime, 240-242-5646. Would love to talk to you, 240-242-5646. And I forgot to test it. I got a little bit of a late start because in there it is actually the phone's ringing. It's so weird. Sometimes it rings. I don't know why that. Anyway, I was watching the Due Dissidents program. The guest is, or this was from yesterday, I guess. I'm not sure. The guest was the Workers Strike Back founder, Shama Sawant. She is running for Congress as an independent. She'll be on the ballot in Seattle, running against the warmonger Adam Smith. So she was on to talk about Zohran Mamdani. Say that 10 times fast. Zohran Mamdani. And that's our choice for sure here at Halitics. And of course, our choice means my choice. I don't think there's really any question he's the best option in that race, especially when, I always thought Jessica Ramos was pretty good, but the fact that she has, said, well, hey, if you don't vote for me or vote for Andrew Cuomo second, I think kind of proves that she's not the right choice. And why am I seeing that counter? That counter shouldn't be there. Let me get rid of it. We're on Hal. That's what the problem with that slide deck is. That particular slide always has the counter. But you can see it, and we put on there a few of the reasons you should vote Mamdani. Cuomo sexually harassed 13 women, according to the Biden Justice Department. That isn't the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi. That's the Department of Justice under, who was the Attorney General under? Now I can't remember who Biden's Attorney General was. Doesn't really matter. Whoever it is, they said, hey, Cuomo sexually harassed 13 women. Also, according to the New York Times, Cuomo concealed the deaths of 4,100 people in New York City and state, across the state nursing homes. So I don't think there's any question. You can see there, on the other hand, Mamdani, tenants group backs Mamdani after his rent freeze call. No question, he deserves your vote. The question, though, posed by Sawan, or posed to Sawan and by her, is, should you ever vote for a Democrat? I'm saying, yes, of course, vote for him. Vote for Mamdani in this primary. He's much better than Cuomo. And not only is he better than Cuomo, because that shouldn't be the test. The test is, will they be good? Will they do good, or will they do bad? In the end, will the city be better off after Mamdani leaves than it was when he took office? That was sort of the test I would have given for de Blasio. And I said, hey, vote for de Blasio. He wasn't as progressive as Mamdani, but he was pretty progressive. I would say probably de Blasio left the city about the way he found it. I think Bloomberg, a lot of people think Bloomberg left it better off. I don't think so. Bloomberg, really amped up the gentrification of the entire city, so it became virtually unaffordable for all but, the billionaire class and their acolytes. Bloomberg, of course, the richest man in the city. I think, the mayors in general, Giuliani, they left the city worse off. I don't know if I would say that about de Blasio. I haven't lived in New York in a long time. I never lived in the city, actually. I haven't lived in the state in a long time. But my sense is that Zohran Mamdani is going to fight for policies that will make New York a better place. And that, for me, is the test. I didn't vote for Kamala, not because she wasn't good enough for me. I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, not because they weren't good enough. They didn't reach like the A level. They didn't even get a C. They would have left, based on how they campaigned, based on their records before running, Clinton and Harris, if they had been elected, in my estimation, of course, we only can guess, we don't know, in my estimation, would have left our country worse off, and it already is in a bad space. They would have left us worse off. So my litmus test is, are you going to make things better, or are you going to make things worse? And that even includes voting for Democrats. There's an argument, and we're going to hear it in greater detail, though, and I would say most of the time Democrats will not make things better. Most of the time we've seen them make things worse. They take a lousy situation, and when they leave office, it's even worse than it was when they took office. Certainly that was true for Biden. Certainly that was true in many respects for Obama. Certainly true for Clinton. So this is what happens when you elect Democrats. They leave the campground more polluted, more junk, more paper wrappings, all strewn about. They don't leave the camping area cleaner, neater, in better order than when they arrived. So that's why I don't vote for them. Now, their argument would be, yeah, sure, you see a few cigarette butts in the area where you would pitch your tent in the campground. There are some beer cans that we kind of swept under the bush. But I mean, have you seen what the Republicans did to their campground? That's the Democratic argument, is we don't mess up our area quite as badly as the Republicans would. And I'm not persuaded by that. I don't find that to be a good argument. I don't find that to be a reason to vote for them. Some people, I guess, do. We see the fruits of Democratic policy. It continues, the blood-letting, the carnage continues. I haven't been, somebody said this to me, that I guess it was Arlen yesterday, haven't really been covering Ukraine. And I guess I should, but we're not really as involved in Ukraine as far as I can tell. I don't know whether Trump, maybe we're still sending them weapons. Maybe that's my bad. But it's not the same as in Gaza, where we continue to be 100% behind an absolute genocide, a Holocaust, a new Holocaust. 120 Palestinians killed over the past 24 hours. Just absolutely horrific. That you can see it's June 11, 2025 is the date on that article. And think about that number, 120. As far as I can tell, I haven't been keeping close eye, and I didn't keep checking today, there haven't been any deaths in Los Angeles, right? There've been all this, there've been all this rioting, and not all this, but some certainly some property damage. People very justifiably irate at ICE, angry at the LAPD. This was a point one of the progressive activists I was working with today made. How come all the Democrats can do is complain about Trump sending in the National Guard and Trump deputizing the military, which they should. It's terrible. But how come we don't hear about how murderous the Los Angeles Police Department is? What about the New York City police? These folks are killing people too. They commit mayhem also, and yet we don't really hear about it because they're under Democratic rule, right? Democratic governors, Democratic mayors, Democratic state assemblies. So their malfeasance is kind of swept under the rug. And I think that's a very good point. I don't think it's a perfect point, though, because in the end, if the Los Angeles Police Department abuses Los Angelinos, we should know about it. It should be reported. They should be held accountable. But they are the appropriate law enforcement authority in Los Angeles. But there was no cause for the National Guard to be called up. Trump should absolutely not be sending the U.S. military into Los Angeles or other American cities. There's no cause for it. But what I will say, so far, nobody's dead as a result. That's like the one, I guess, silver lining. Nobody's dead, but we hear about it over and over and over. And I know it's our country, it's our land, so yeah, you would hear it from the corporate media more than you would what's happening around the world. But in Israel, every single day, 50, 60, 70, 120 killed with our weapons. And you barely hear about it all. I got to go to the Arab press, the Arab media to report on it. 120 Palestinians killed, and you barely hear about it. Nobody killed in Los Angeles, thank God. That's good. But it's the worst thing that ever happened when Trump sends in the military. And it is terrible. I'm not saying it's not terrible. But how come we don't have any? It seems there's really just no outrage on the left at Israel and at our support for this genocidal regime. I find that so upsetting. It's so disappointing. I'm not the only one who's noticed this, by the way. So just real quick, a little bit more on the numbers. At least 120 Palestinians killed and 474 injured in Israeli attacks over the past 24 hours. 3 bodies were also found in the rubble. So we always tell you that the death count that we provide understates the total number killed by Israel, which may well be in the hundreds of thousands, probably is. But here's just an example of 3 more people that Israel killed, bombed, blew up, whatever, machine gun, we don't know. 3 more people who were found under the rubble, and they weren't in the count. They weren't killed yesterday. They weren't in that 120. That 120 did include 57 aid seekers. So these are starving people that are begging for food and getting mowed down. Of the 120, total number dead at those distro centers, 224, and many, many, many injured. How come? This is what I don't get. Why doesn't it upset liberals more? Why doesn't that break their hearts? They're so angry. I hear this so often. So many people I talk to, they're so angry at Trump. We just have to stop Trump. Just get rid of Trump. If we only can get rid of Trump, everything will be fine. There was a full-blown genocide that our country supported under the Democratic president and vice president. Everything wasn't fine when Trump wasn't in office. It wasn't even close. Yeah, I mean, there you go. So, let's see, we'll just do this here. Since October 7, Israel and the U.S. have killed a minimum of 55,104 Gazans, including 120 Tuesday, plus 3 bodies found, as we just told you. And we have a count for Trump Netanyahu, 4,829 killed. And that likely includes over 2,000 kids. So every day my heart breaks. You know, one of the things that this kind of does to me, by the way, I think about myself and my actions, and I feel terrible. Like, I'm like, you know, this is all we have. We have this brief span on Earth, and our country is lashing out in this violent, I would say irrational way. You could try to come up with I don't think there's no justification. It's clearly criminal. I would say it's irrational. Some would say, well, no, there's reason behind it. There's AIPAC and there's a lot of money, and, you know, there's political realities. So maybe that's true. Maybe that's fair. And maybe I shouldn't say it's irrational, but it's, from a human standpoint, it's existential. Clearly, we're destroying a group of people. And I look at my life and I think, you know, all we have is each other. And to kill each other is so wrong. And I think, well, you know, I've never killed anybody. I never, you know, put anybody, you know, hurt anybody like that. You know, hurt anybody seriously. I mean, I guess I've gotten into a few fights, but usually I would be the loser in those encounters. But I haven't been as nice to people as I should have been. I haven't always treated people respectfully, decently. And obviously that's not like blowing them up, putting bullets in their heads like the Israeli military does. But I think about this. Our duty is to try to make life just a little easier for each other, to try to help each other out, to be supportive, to be positive, and if failing that, just to walk away. And seeing what this client state of the United States is doing brings home to me my failings as a human being. And I can only try to do better. I can only try to do better, and, you know, maybe try to stop it to the extent I can, bring to the light this horrible crime. All right, you're watching Halitics. You're with Halitics. I'm Hal. Please do please click subscribe. I just clicked the subscribe button there. You bottom right, you can subscribe. Join us on Facebook. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a little bit of an increase, I think. I think I'm getting a little more viewership and the like. Also, a lot of people on Facebook, so it's not just on YouTube. So we've got a couple of different platforms where you can find us. And I'm going to click that little like button, so click the thumbs up on the like, and all of that good stuff helps us just keep beating that algorithm. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do here is just get the word out, have people maybe get a fuller understanding. At least that's what I like to think I bring to some of the issues, many of the issues of the day. I saw this post last night on Facebook, and it really, really resonated with me. I was just, yeah, this person is saying it all. This is a friend of Halitics who posts this. I never, you know, out people, but, you know, well, rarely, maybe depending on the forum. But so this was what a friend of Halitics posted. How do you continue to live in a world like this, where Swedish environmentalists bring food to starving children as kidnapped, and men online, by the way, I didn't see this, are saying it's good for her because she's fat. I never saw that one. Plus, I don't, you know, that's a stretch, right? Greta Thunberg, I mean, not that it would ever be okay to, you know, body shame somebody, but I mean, that's a pretty weak body shaming. I mean, she's not overweight. Were we always this barbaric, or are we circling the drain as a species? So the answer to that is yes. Yeah, we have always been this barbaric, and yes, we are circling the drain as a species, given that we have so much power now to destroy. Man is the destroyer. We used to be the hunter, but now we're the destroyer, because when you hunt an animal, you kill one antelope, you kill one bison, as the native, the indigenous, well, the Native Americans did, the indigenous people of this region, and they weren't, ultimately they were immigrants, right? Because they walked across from Asia. Their ancestors did. But regardless, you kill one bison, that doesn't really do any harm to the species. So we were man the hunter, but we became man the destroyer because it's probably the case, I don't know that it's been definitely substantiated, that those indigenous hunters did wipe out many of the large fauna, the megafauna, big-bodied animals in the Western Hemisphere during the last ice age, right? So maybe the woolly mammoth and other saber-toothed cat, whatever, they were probably not hunted to extinction necessarily, but it may well be that human hunters wiped out the prey of the saber-toothed cat, and that's why there's no more saber-toothed cat, there's no more dire wolf. We don't really know. It could be big climate issues. No one's quite sure, but there's very strong suspicion for sure that human hunters ultimately hunted to extinction some of the prey that they sought, not such as like I mentioned, the woolly mammoth, the mastodon, that type of animal. So man the hunter becomes man the destroyer. Even then, yeah, so you wipe out a species here or there. It's bad. It messes up the web of life, but, species do go extinct even without humans. But now we've reached the point with our incredibly sophisticated and incredibly large, sophisticated civilizations with such, specialization. And then we also have so many people on the planet. So man is now the destroyer. So we've always been this barbaric, but now we're circling the drain because we have the ability to wipe everything away. Trying so hard to shine light, but every day is a battle. So true. That's 100% how I feel. Very spoke to me directly. And I did respond. Maybe it was a little pedantic because I complained yesterday to Arlen about the pedantry. That's a word. Pedantry of Tom Hartman. He is really popular. It's true. I'm not a huge fan. He's very popular. He has a huge audience. And I'm not really clear why, but whatever, he is. I do find him pedantic. But here I'm being pedantic. So it's very, very tough to persevere these days. Sometimes things do seem to get a little better, but then they get worse. And then I bring in this ancient history lesson, mainly, because were we always this way as a species? But also, I am so, I'm not a historian. It's not like a big thing for me, but I find the Athenian people so interesting, so fascinating, because these were like the geniuses of, they were the height of civilization. Let's put it this way. They were without question the height of ancient civilization, as I know. Most sophisticated city-state in Europe, we just don't know enough about, at least I don't know enough about Chinese culture, about Egyptian culture, about African civilizations to say about American, the Mayans, although they were much later. But to know just how much Athens was ahead of other cities. But certainly in Europe, they would appear to have been the most sophisticated given the legacy that is with us. Plays, these are classics. They are still, great literature that they created 2,500 years ago. Philosophy that really does encompass human condition. And the government, they kind of invented, people say they invented democracy. I don't know, it seems a little grandiose, but certainly there was a form of citizen government where the people made decisions rather than one king. So, yeah. And guess what they did? They committed genocide themselves. They were murderous just like we are, just like Israel is, just like the Nazis. They just would wipe an island off the map, basically. You're not going to pay your tribute to us. You're not going to send us soldiers to use as cannon fodder against the Spartans. Well, we're just going to kill you. And they did. So yeah, it's always been this bad. It's just now we have the power to destroy everything, whereas before we didn't. Just some things. Story from yesterday. By the way, call if you get a chance. Love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. Not really following. If there's comments, I don't know. Maybe there are. Maybe there aren't. I see we're on Facebook, which is cool. Let me see if I can find the YouTube, just to check the YouTube stream. I'm going to redo that because I'm not. Yeah, we are. When is it okay? So that's the question. When is it okay to vote for a Democrat? And I already gave the answer. It's okay to vote for a Democrat if the Democrat is going to make things better. Most don't, but every now and then you can kind of hope that one will. There was a Democratic primary yesterday. By the way, you shouldn't vote based on hope, by the way. I'm real clear. No, you don't say, well, I hope Kamala will be better. I mean, I believe she really cares about Israel. She just can't say it. No, there's no basis for that. There's no reason to think that. That's not rational. Don't vote based on hope, but vote based on reality. Zohran Mamdani's record, Zohran Mamdani's campaigning, his speeches, his rhetoric, give you reason to believe he will govern in the best interest of the people. That's a good reason to vote for him. There was no reason to believe that about Kamala Harris. We endorsed yesterday, before the primary was completed in New Jersey, the Newark mayor, Ras Baraka, and then our second choice was Steve Fulop, the Jersey City mayor, and that was based in part on what a Jersey friend of mine had to say. But it also jived with what I had read and learned about these folks. And I had reason to believe, Baraka, who's really made a centerpiece, making Newark a more affordable city, a little easier for the poor, struggling working people who are the vast majority of Newarkers. It's not called Newark. That's in Delaware. It's called Newark, but I don't know if they're called Newarkers or Newark residents or whatever they're called. Newarkites. He's tried. He did not win. He did come in second, but that doesn't matter except in horseshoes and hand grenades. So here are your actual results. Mikey Sherrill, she was, I guess, the odds-on favorite going in. She did win by a comfortable margin, I would say. About a third of the vote, 34%. But that's well above where Baraka, who came in second, was. He landed with 20%, and then Fulop at 16 or so. This is interesting because Fulop and Baraka were widely viewed as the two progressives in the race, probably correctly so. And they did combined get more votes than Sherrill. So if there had been ranked choice voting, it's conceivable if both Baraka and Fulop had put the other one as their second choice, that after several rounds they would catch up. The problem with that is the other candidate, Scott Heimer especially, very conservative, very corporatist, basically a Republican. His voters would have almost certainly backed Sherrill. And I can't speak for the others, but probably Sherrill, if there had been ranked choice voting, would have squeaked over the 50% mark in New Jersey. She did win. She'll run against Citarelli, I believe is his name, or Chitterelli. And he's a Republican, and I don't know that there's much difference. So this is an opportunity. This is what I would say to progressive groups. You wanted to back Baraka in the primary, good. Unfortunately, I don't think they really did. There wasn't a big upsurge in support from progressive groups. I don't think they were really involved, as far as I know. And I did a little research, not a lot. Unions pretty much sitting out the Democratic primary, and very disappointing because you had an opportunity there to put a much more progressive Democrat in the governor's mansion. Well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So the alternative is there's a Green. Vote for the Green. The Green will be a much better, if he wins, would be a much better governor than Sherrill, the Democrat. And even if Sherrill loses, let's say you're the spoiler, let's say the Green is the spoiler, it doesn't matter because there's not really any difference between Sherrill and Citarelli, who's a moderate Republican. They're pretty much the same on the issues. It's kind of like the same here in Maryland. Who cares if Larry Hogan or Wes Moore is the governor? They're pretty much the same. There's zero reason to not vote for Andy Ellis, who's running as the Green, because it's not going to hurt. It's not going to impact much one way or the other on the day-to-day living of Marylanders, whether the governor is Hogan, the Republican, or Moore, the centrist corporate third way down. All right, 240-242-5646. I want to find the Green candidate. I was just looking it up, but they're not. Stephen Zielinski, that's his name. Steve Zielinski, he will be running for governor in New Jersey as the Green candidate. We got a lot of Greens running now, right? Andy Ellis in Maryland on the ballot next year, probably. I think there still has to be a primary. In California, you're going to have Butch Ware next year running for governor. And this year, this man, let's show him for everyone, Steve Zielinski. So I really hope folks will consider voting for Steve Zielinski for governor of New Jersey. And we'll talk about that race going forward. But again, not much difference between the Republicans in that race. I hope that, Zohran Mamdani wins the Democratic primary. And there'll be a Green running there too for mayor, I'm sure. Should you support Mamdani? Should you vote for Mamdani? Well, this isn't the general election. This is the primary. I cannot see any reason not to vote for Mamdani. Now, some would say, well, but you have to be registered as a Democrat. We don't want to be registered as a Democrat. Okay, register in advance. I know they make it so hard in New York, but register in advance for the Democratic primary. There's no Green primary. It's certainly not that day. There wasn't a Green primary. So that's not how they do it. They don't select their candidates that way. They have a convention. So make sure you're on. You can vote in the New York Democrat closed primary, because that's when it matters. That's when it really, really matters. If Zohran Mamdani, why do I have so much trouble with that? It's not hard. If Zohran Mamdani wins, then there'll be a good chance that a good mayor will emerge from that election, from the duopoly, from the Democrats and Republicans. If not, if it's Cuomo, then you just can go ahead and vote for the Green in the general. It doesn't matter. But why not at least give yourself the option of voting for a good Democrat if there is one? Some say there isn't. I get they're hard to find. I get there aren't a lot of them. But I would say Mamdani probably is one of those who's pretty decent. This is from The Nation, and it's by a, did I show you that title? Let me give it to you. This is by, I don't know this writer, Anthony Conwright. Will Black, but this goes with what Carlos and I were talking about last week, friend of Halitics, Carlos and I were talking about how the front-runner status that Andrew Cuomo, the corrupt sexual harasser, enjoys, the front-runner status that he enjoys at this time in the mayor's race, is due to the support he gets, the overwhelming support he's getting from Black New Yorkers. And, Carlos and I were both like a little surprised, not shocked, not amazed, but yeah, why would African Americans, African American New Yorkers who have been, harmed by the neo-lib policies that Andrew Cuomo championed, who have been harmed by his covering up deaths in New York nursing homes. His policies were bad for poor, struggling, working class New Yorkers who are disproportionately Black. So why would they support him? And here Anthony Conwright gives the explanation while acknowledging, or while making the point, that even though Black New Yorkers do support Cuomo, he makes the argument that they're wrong to do so, that Cuomo is not a good choice for Black Americans. He is Black, according to him. He says he is. I'm sure he is. So here's what Conright writes. In my home of New York City, Black New Yorkers are living under duress as a caste of have-nots while the haves lavishly flourish. Yet Cuomo, former governor, is leading all candidates in Black support by a big margin, too. It's about 75%, just about. And Cuomo discredits the policies that would address the very issues that disproportionately harm Black New Yorkers. He says, well, they're socialist. They're socialists. And that apparently works. That nonsense, right? Oh, these are socialist policies. So you can't support Zohran Mamdani because he is calling for free transit, free education, meaning you go to City College, you go to Hunter College, you go to Brooklyn College, there's no tuition, right? Free housing. He's not calling for free housing. That's what Cuomo says he is. Oh, they want free housing. But actually, he just wants to increase rent stabilization and a rent freeze, not free housing, and tax the rich. So Cuomo's demeaning that. Now, it's odd that he would think, meaning Cuomo, that mocking free transit, free education, and taxing the rich is going to be a winning message, right? You'd think most people would say, wait a second, we like free education. We have free education in this country, at least up through the age of 18. And around the world, colleges and universities are, in many schools, free or very, very reduced cost. In this country, you could go to the University of California, University of Michigan, the best schools in the country in the 1960s for a couple $100 a year. And it worked pretty darn well, as a matter of fact. So how is that message by Cuomo? Oh, they preach free transit and free education and taxing the rich. How awful. Now that I would think most people would be like, yeah, that's what we should have. And the free housing, well, everyone should have housing. Housing should be considered a human right, of course. But that's not what Mamdani's preaching. He says we need a rent freeze, and we need to address the fact that there are so many unhoused in New York City. Of course, he's right. So how is that message by Cuomo even resonating? Well, according to Anthony Conright, the reason, and again, this is, we want to understand why voters may vote the way they do, which is sometimes or oftentimes contrary to their best interest. But also, this is kind of telling you, telling me that Mamdani's the best candidate. Vote for Mamdani. This is a really important thing. 2 weeks, the primary, less one day, 2 weeks from yesterday. The fact that Cuomo's robust Black support while vilifying policies rooted in the Black tradition of collective care, and that I didn't show you that section of the article, but what Conright says is that in the Black church, during collection, you would also give money to help the poorest members of the congregation, those who might need money to pay the rent, who might need money for groceries, who might need money for medicine. We would help them out. So he's saying, hey, the idea that, we should have Medicare for all, we should have socialized medicine, is actually consistent with the Black tradition of collective care. And yet, the candidate who's most opposed to that tradition, whose policies are most contradicted, is the one that we Blacks are voting for. What the hell's going on? And he says, well, it's because we have been convinced through the efforts over generations by Democrats that we'll suffer under if a socialist is elected in the Democratic primary, that we'll be the ones who are on the front lines. We can't take the risk because if we vote for Mamdani, the Republican might win. If we vote for Bernie, he can't win, whereas Hillary can win. We all know how poorly that worked out. I think that's part of it. I also agree where he says it is white privilege to support a socialist candidate. I think there's this idea that socialist policies will disproportionately, or will, if not disproportionately, benefit. And this is going to be controversial. I think I've said this, and I know some people have gotten angry at me for saying it, but I think there's a sense that those kinds of policies that are colorblind, right, like Medicare for all, assistance for housing, college, public college free, raising taxes on the rich, that doesn't benefit directly or specifically Black Americans. It benefits poor, struggling, working class Americans, many of whom are white. And I think there's an attitude that they shouldn't get the help. We need the help. They shouldn't get it. They don't need it. And I disagree with that view. I just don't think we should consider one's identity as determining one's status. Our status, more than anything else, is determined by our income and our wealth. That's ultimately the bottom line. There are other factors. I'm not saying there aren't. Sure, you're trans, life is tougher. It's true. It's just a fact. And I agree. I'm sure. I don't know. I'm not trans. I can imagine if you're Black, it's harder in a lot of ways than being white. In many different scenarios, it's harder. But the easy solution is to equalize, not make completely equal all income, not make sure everyone has the exact same income, but everyone has enough and no one has too much. And after we do that, and then if we still see inequities and injustices, and I'm sure we will, then let's deal with those. Let's keep going. Now, it doesn't mean we stop, with other solutions that we have already put in place, like Fair Housing Act, fair employment laws. Those are critical. Those are crucial. Of course, we're not going to gut those. We should never. But we should focus right now, I believe, on making sure everyone has enough and no one has too much. And that is Zohran Mamdani. But there's I think a fear among some Black voters, and I might be wrong, and if you want to call in and argue with me, go ahead, that they would be left behind by such a policy. And I don't know how we deal with that. It's really, really tough. It's the same with many white voters. They don't want to hear about policies or programs that are going to help African American communities that are targeted for urban environments, because they feel that they're the ones whose need is greatest. And I think the answer is we progressives, we on the left, have to do everything possible to prove that we are absolutely sincere in our effort to address poverty, to address injustice, to address the kind of just obscene inequalities that we have in this country. All right, 240-242-5646, 240-242-5646. Just one more clip or one more section from this article, which I'm really presenting it more as the reason why I think we should, on the left, I'm going to make phone calls. I'm going to phone bank for Mamdani, and I may also go up to New York and pound the pavement, because I do believe a political solution is the only one that will really work. So what Conright ends with is many Black New Yorkers, many Black Americans believe that it's more practical to support a corporate Democrat who will allow slow-moving capitalism-induced poverty and homelessness than to support so-called socialist policies and politicians like Mamdani, who advocates raising the minimum wage to $30, taxing millionaires and billionaires to provide free transit and universal child care. So again, these are the right policies. This is what we need to do to make society just a little bit fairer, a little bit less unjust, a little bit better. That's why it's okay to vote for him. That's why you should vote for him. He's not a Chuck Schumer Democrat. He's not a Kamala Harris Democrat. He's not a Pete Buttigieg Democrat. He's a Democrat whose policies will improve the quality of life for New Yorkers. And that's why it's not just okay to vote for him. One should vote for him. All right, let's get the response from Shama Sawant. And this is her talking on the due dissidence. I don't have the whole video for you at all. It's quite long, but you can find it. It's out there. Due dissidence is the channel, right, that she's on here, and you can see she's actually on with Mamdani. Well, he's not really on it. They just use that as the thumbnail. Is Mamdani serious? And I think what they really mean is it okay to vote for him? You know, obviously he's serious. Maybe is he credible? Is he really on the side of working people? Let's hear what Sawant has to say.
Be independent of the Democratic and Republicans. If you're not even doing that, then forget about it, because the Democratic Party.
I'm going to start a little bit earlier because we missed a little bit of where I wanted her to go. I'm not quite sure why. So we'll go back about 20 seconds. Here we go.
And as you are, is really the only way to challenge the establishment.
Well,
so the question is, can you challenge the establishment? What Russell's question really was. Let me begin. You're challenging the Democratic establishment in Seattle by running as an independent, by running outside of the party structure. Is there any other way to challenge the elites except by running independent of the two-party system? That's the question. Can you possibly challenge them from within one of the two parties? So let's hear what Sawant has to say.
First of all, in mathematics and logic, you have this necessary and sufficient condition type of thing. So a necessary condition for achieving anything for working class people through elected office is to be independent of the Democratic and Republicans. If you're not even doing that, then forget about it, because the Democratic Party is where all the good intentions go to die a horrible death.
Right.
So if you're not willing to understand that, because I mean, and I'm not speaking about Mamdani because I don't know him personally. I don't know what's in his head. I don't know that. But I'm making a general statement because statistically it is so overwhelmingly true. It is safe to say this about any individual as well, in the sense that if in this day and age, after all the betrayals by the squad, by AOC specifically, by the fact that Bernie Sanders had no hesitation in endorsing a genocider in chief, Biden, and then uncritically supporting Harris. After all this has happened, after the way that the Democratic Party completely crushed Bernie's campaigns twice, not just once, after all this, if you're still going to run as a Democrat, then it really begs the question of how serious you might be, even with all the good intentions in the world. How serious?
All right, so let me stop it. So she's assuming, and I think rightly so, that Mamdani has good intentions. And the reason is because he's been very clear, very consistent in advocating the policies we just discussed. A rent freeze, $30 minimum wage, paying for it with a higher tax on corporations, explaining how it could be done, free transportation. So these are policies that Sawant herself supports. And she's saying, even with all those great policies, even assuming you're sincere, are you really serious? Don't you get that the Democratic Party is where good ideas go to die, that the Democratic Party will not support these policies? That's what she's saying. So therefore, it doesn't make sense to vote for Mamdani, and certainly doesn't make sense for him to run as a Democrat. I don't agree with her. I just flat out disagree with that. I don't see why voting for an independent, I don't see why electing an independent, even electing, forget about voting. She's been elected as an independent. She did get a lot done in Seattle. It's true. She did get the $15 minimum wage there much earlier than other cities passed it. And in fact, she got it done because it was passed in other cities because of Sawant. So I honor that. And I note that she got a lot of money for housing in inner city neighborhoods, and neighborhoods that had been blighted by bad government policies, neighborhoods that were disproportionately of color. They benefited because of, they got benefits. They got some justice because of Shama Sawant. So I give her a tremendous amount of credit for all that. But I don't see why having an independent means you're more likely to get change than getting a truly progressive Democrat like we hope Mamdani is. Now, you might make the argument, well, he's not really that progressive. AOC campaigned as a progressive, but she isn't. And we can't hold, now there's that argument. You can't hold him accountable. That would be true. It would be tougher to hold a Mamdani accountable than if he were a Green. But you can't always hold independents accountable either. They can switch parties, or they can be, join a party. I'm just not totally understanding this argument. If you have a truly good Democrat, I don't see the argument not to vote for them. Let me play a little bit more from. In fact, I think if you are in the Democrat Party, you are more likely to be able to effectuate change than if you're outside the party, assuming you really, really, really want to. If AOC had continued, had persisted, if they had forced the vote for House Speaker back in 21, instead of caving to Nancy Pelosi, if they had done that, I think we could have had some real change, and that would have been change that came from within the party. They just didn't do it. All right, here's Sawant.
Strategically to achieve any of the campaign platform that.
All right, so yeah, how sincere are you? So that was it. I had the whole clip in there. So how serious are you if you're going to run as a Democrat? And again, I mean, for this, I give him the benefit of the doubt because he seems, certainly in his rhetoric, to be extremely sincere. And again, what's the alternative? Somebody who's really, really, really bad, Cuomo. Now, in the general, if there's a Green candidate running against Mamdani, and I think the Green is better, the Green is more credible, then I might have to engage in a little bit of harm reduction. Does the Green have any chance? Because Mamdani is affirmatively, as far as I can tell, based on his record, good. He would be a good mayor. That is why, in the end, I would be inclined to vote for him. That is why, in the end, I did not vote for Harris. That is why, in the end, I did not vote for Hillary. That's why I didn't vote for Jamie Raskin in the last election, because I don't think he's been a good representative. I think he has stymied the kind of change we need under a progressive guise. All right. I do think in some cases, yes, it's better to vote for a Democrat. But this guy makes it really, really tough sometimes to argue.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government.
All right, so there we go. There's getting a lot of static there. I'm going to try to reload that. This is Chuck Schumer. He posted this, I'm not sure where, I guess on Facebook, and he's getting a lot of static for it, just like you just heard static, and he should get it. It's a disgusting video. It's despicable. He is, people I talked to, I said this before, well, the Democrats aren't as bad as Republicans. Well, here's Schumer worse than Trump. And it's interesting, too, when people argue, well, they can't stand up, they don't have power. When the Democrats do often stand up or say no to Trump or criticize Trump, it's when he's trying to do something that would be a good policy, like tariffs, like ending the Ukraine war, and like trying to negotiate a peace deal with Iran.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of
All right, it's not working. So I'm going to see if I can get the actual video through Responsible Statecraft, which is where I first read about this particular, just this shameful behavior. by Schumer, where he's mocking Trump for actually being a leader, for actually trying to promote peace, and doing everything he can to stop peace from breaking out, some kind of a deal with Iran. So let's see if we can I think this will work better. It's sort of annoying that recording didn't, but what can you do? You do what you do. Do what you can what you do. I don't know. We'll just we'll play this. I was going to talk a little bit about the Green Party too, and why the Green Party, which I support, hasn't gotten quite as much traction as I would have liked. But let's just play this clip. We'll maybe get to that tomorrow. Here's Schumer, the House minority, the Senate minority leader, formerly the Democratic majority leader in the Senate, right? When the Democrats have the majority, this is the guy they picked to lead them. This is the guy, this pro-warmongering genocider is who the Democrats apparently think is their best leader in the Senate.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden,
By the way, why is he going in and out of focus? That's not me. That's not me. That's not my video. He's just sort of in and out. I guess whoever was doing it thought that was a cool effect. But let's play it again, because I want to just stop in a couple of spots.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran.
All right, terrorist government. I was wondering about that. How is the government of Iran terrorist? What is he talking about? Iran had nothing to do with, for example, 9/11. That was a terrorist act. Iran, I don't believe, there's been no evidence they had anything to do with October 7th in Israel, which was a terrorist attack by Hamas. It was terror. They were using terror to try to change politics there. I don't think Iran had anything to do with it. Iran has launched a few attacks against Israel. They haven't been particularly effective. Iran is backing the Houthis. Iran is a legitimate country. It has a legitimate government. They have elections. Iran is not a terrorist state. That's just false. That's just rhetoric, empty rhetoric by Schumer, who apparently wants a war with Iran.
Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran.
Oh, no.
What kind of...
There might be a deal. Didn't Witkoff negotiate for a while a ceasefire with Israel? Wasn't he kind of effective in that? Don't you want peace, Chuck? Or did maybe Lockheed Martin or whoever your New York arms manufacturers are come to you and just say, no, we've got to kibosh any peace with Iran?
They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything?
What is Iran getting away with? The country that's getting away with things right now, I know people are going to say it's Russia. Russia can get away with nothing. Russia's paid an incredible price for invading Ukraine. It's paid a terrible price in blood, in treasure. They should stop. They shouldn't have done it. But they're not getting away with it. The country that's really getting away with it is Israel, who slaughters dozens and hundreds and tortures dozens and hundreds of people for every hostage taken, who rapes and molests dozens and hundreds of people for every one person who Hamas might have sexually harassed. So what is he saying Iran is getting away with? There's nothing. He doesn't identify anything but, oh no, we can't let Iran get away with something.
We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American
So let me stop it. So the Taco, that's like this new thing, right? Because Taco, Trump always chickens out. And that's because Wall Street or traders have been spooked by the idea that there might be tariffs. Now, I think there should be tariffs. I don't think Trump's tariffs are necessarily well thought out, well considered, But even a bad tariff is probably better than none, because it will bring back jobs to this country. It will protect some American jobs. So with rare exceptions, like I wouldn't put a tariff on bourbon or on whiskey, right? On scotch. I wouldn't do that because it could hurt our bourbon industry. I don't know. Maybe we export more bourbon than we import scotch. If that's the case, it'd be a bad idea to put a tariff on scotch because we would be cutting off our own industry. So there are a few cases where tariffs don't make sense. But because we're a net importer, because we lose many more jobs to foreign manufacturers than we create in this country based from exports, we should have tariffs. But Wall Street doesn't like tariffs, which, by the way, is a pretty good argument for them. Without anything more, if you know Wall Street traders don't like a particular government policy, there's a good chance that it's a positive, that the policy would be a good one. So the Wall Street traders are like, yeah, don't worry about it. Trump says he's going to put the tariffs on, but taco, Trump always chickens out. Which is, unfortunately, he sort of has. Although it's not really true, though. The tariffs have gone up on a lot of items, and it hasn't tanked the economy. That hasn't happened. So he hasn't completely chickened out with the tariffs, but he has to a degree. So now Schumer's saying, look, bok, bok, chicken, bok, bok. Like, this is like he's trying to start a schoolyard fight, right? That's what Schumer's trying to do. He's trying to start a schoolyard fight between the United States and Iran. He wants war. He's calling Trump a chicken. You're a chicken. You're not going to stand up to Iran. You're not going to bomb Iran. We want war with Iran. Don't you get it? That's what Schumer's doing. So this argument that Dems are better, anything but Trump. How do you deal when you have this kind of garbage on the Democratic side?
The public should know about it. No side deals.
All right,
Restaurant,
of
diner,
course we want a
notices,
deal.
table
We
of-
want peace. I think most of us get that. Most of us get that's the right answer. Groups that I do trust, that I do respect, they are absolutely appalled. They're disgusted, and rightly so, by Chuck Schumer. So here's a letter that a large number of pro-peace, anti-war groups put together. Dateline today. Dear Schumer, we represent millions of Americans and New Yorkers who oppose war. We expect you will treat weighty issues of war and peace as a statesman and give them the serious gravity they deserve. But unfortunately, you've tried to out-hawk President Trump, and you failed the test of being a statesman. Your comments pair to the very same bad faith and conspiracy-fueled attacks that Republicans wrongly leveled at Obama in a bid to tank his Iran negotiations a decade ago. Retract your video. Well, he hasn't retracted it. And they go on to add, there are valid reasons. There are indeed valid reasons to stand up to Trump. Trying to prevent a nuclear war with Iran, that ain't one of them. So that's just part of that letter. It's a really strong letter. It's really good. You can get it at Responsible Statecraft. And again, the groups that signed it include, these are a lot of important groups, but I highlighted, Peace Action is really good. I highlighted Code Pink. You see a lot of New York groups, Genesee Valley, Brooklyn for Peace, Long Island Progressive Coalition. These are New York based, so obviously they have stake in going after the New York Senator Schumer. And again, there's Peace Action. So what ultimately those pro-peace groups are saying to the Democratic minority leader in the Senate is, Trump is better than you on this issue. Trump is better than you, Schumer, on this issue. You want war with Iran. You're trying to bait Trump into going to war with Iran. Trump's better than you on that issue. That's what Kopenka is saying. That's what Peace Action is saying. And those who hate Trump, who demonize, who feel Trump is the worst thing that ever lived, and there's so many of you out there, think about that. As bad as Trump is, pro-peace groups are saying that when it comes to Iran, and they would say this about Ukraine too, when it comes to Ukraine, Schumer is worse. So there's the argument. I think that's the best argument I could come up with not to vote for Mamdani. Mamdani is ultimately in the same party as Chuck Schumer. Schumer's a New York Democrat from an outer borough, Brooklyn. Mamdani is a New York Democrat from an outer borough, Queens. But the similarities are greater than the differences. And Mamdani isn't running for Congress. He isn't running for the Senate. He wouldn't be under Schumer's thumb. He's running to be the executive, the mayor. He would have a lot of power. He would not need to raise money. He would not need to whip votes. So I don't see the argument against Democrats, which is very strong, very legitimate. I don't see that argument carrying the day when it comes to the New York mayoral primary in 2 weeks. Vote Mamdani. And I'll see you next time on Halitics.